others will be able to join us. My name is Fleur Newman, and I lead the work on action for climate empowerment at the UN Climate Change Secretariat. And the Secretariat is the body that supports the climate change negotiations. And we're here today to talk about how to engage with the UNFCCC process and to talk about a special project known as the ACE Hub, so Action for Climate Empowerment is also known as ACE. There are a lot of acronyms in the multilateral process. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and how it relates to everyone, no matter where you are. And so I want to first thank the Teachers College and Columbia University for offering us this space to have this event in a week which is very busy with the UNGA and Climate Week New York, and we very much appreciate it. And I would like to invite Tina Volker, who's the head of the Unit of Climate Protection Policy, Municipal Climate Protection at the Ministry of Economic Affairs, Industry, Climate Action and Energy of the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, to first come and give us some welcoming remarks. Please, Tina.
Thank you very much, Fleur. Hello, welcome also from my side. Fleur said it, my name is Tina, I'm from Germany, and we are actually in the heart of Europe, located close to the Dutch border. So living a really European life with crossing borders every day, nearly. Yeah, it means a lot to me to be here today, personally, because I haven't been traveling. I've not been outside of Europe since COVID. And I've been craving this international exchange a lot over this time. So I'm really happy to be here in New York. And also it's fantastic, of course, to be here at Columbia University, having the chance to experience this atmosphere here. So thank you very much for making this possible for us. But of course, also on a professional side, this event is important because this project of ACE, the ACE Hub that we're doing together with UNFCCC, is a unique project for us, and we believe really that this whole topic of education, of awareness raising, training around the world is crucial for reaching climate goals. So great that we have the chance really to discuss that today. So I'd just like to give you a very brief insight in what North Rhine-Westphalia is, so maybe you have never heard of it. So we are the biggest state in Germany with 18 million people. I think for New Yorkers that could be a bit funny, but Germany is in itself really densely populated, so we have 80 million people, and we are also home to the largest cluster of energy-intensive industries in Europe. So we are based for industries such as steel, cement, glass, paper, machinery, and we're also the powerhouse of Germany. So we produce 1/3 of electricity in Germany, and unfortunately that also leads to 1/3 of CO2 emissions of Germany, which is really a lot. So we have a long tradition of coal mining, hard coal and lignite. This is also, of course, why energy intensive industry is in our region. And we have quite a few coal-fired power plants still running. But despite this really challenging infrastructure, climate-wise, we have embarked on the path to net zero emissions by 2045. And the goal now, also of the new government, but also the government we had before, is really to be the most modern and most climate-friendly industrial region in Europe. So quite a task, but we are really in discussion and collaborating with the industry itself, with scientific research institutions, really to define pathways, implement projects, and also to generate money on the European level, national level, and also give in money to especially industry transformation as well from our region. And energy sector is under construction as well. We have a national goal of phasing out of coal until 2038. And the new government announced it's striving for phasing out of coal by 2030. Of course, this is not only on us to decide, it's a decision between states and states in Germany and at the federal level. But I think it's a really important sign, political sign, to say we want to do that. We want to phase out by 2030 and be faster. Of course, in the current situation with the upcoming energy crisis, that is even more a challenge because some of the power plants that should be phasing out next year, they will be running longer. So we have a bit of a back roll on that end. But this can also be an opportunity really to be faster in the implementation of renewables, be faster in thinking of concepts of climate neutral mobility, all these things. So we hope that in the end we come through this crisis, and when we come out, we can say it has also done good for the infrastructure, for climate action, and it's not only that massive back roll that we experience at the moment. So we're doing a lot at home, but we're also, of course, interested in connecting internationally, and therefore we are part of the Under 2 Coalition. That is a network of states and regions around the globe. 270 subnational regions are gathering in that, which goes strong on climate. That is what unites us, so to speak. And for me, the most important thing on that is peer learning. So that also connects two A's. And we really go into detail with colleagues, discussing stuff like industry transformation in detail, hydrogen pathways. And it's not only like conference style, but it's really getting the work done in workshops and really going into depth to these topics. And this really, for me, is the benefit. And yesterday, at the opening ceremony of Climate Week, Catherine McKenna, the former Ministry for Environment of Canada, she said, we have no more time for fake movers, for slow movers, and for greenwashing. So time really is an issue. It's the most important issue now when we want to tackle climate change. So I think that copy and paste of really good ideas around the globe is a very smart thing to do. And in the context of sharing ideas, I'm very happy that we can contribute to the ACE Hub and can contribute to international education, training, and awareness raising. Fleur will tell us a bit more about that in a minute. But beforehand, I'm handing over to Oren for also his welcoming remarks.
I'm going to take this off. Okay. Let's just wait. Oh, thank you. Okay, we're good? So are you going to change the slides? Okay. So, no, okay. Can you go to the first one? No, I had another one. Okay. So, hi everybody. I'm sorry for the technology. So welcome to Teachers College. I wish we had one of our leaders here, but today is a busy day on Tuesday. But let me welcome you to the first and largest graduate school of education in the country. We are around 130-year-old, located in this amazing environment of New York. And we are very happy and proud to host the UNFCCC and the ACE partners on this important occasion. I prepared quick remarks because I'm really eager to hear actually the panelists speaking. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to move to the slide with center. No, the other way. Something is missing. We're missing a slide. After this, okay, never mind. So if I need to describe where we start is with this beautiful picture from 1972, the first moment when people are seeing the planet from outside. And one of the first things that come to your mind when you look at this picture is wow, on how beautiful and fragile the planet is. And our vision is to protect this planet and to do that through education broadly defined. So when I say education, don't think about the K-12 students. Think about the whole spectrum of life, the lifelong experience of learning and teaching, where that it could happen in K-12 schools, but it could also happen in museums, cafeterias, buses, public transportation, opera, TV, radio, etc. So we really think about education broadly defined, and what can education bring to the plate when we are trying to protect this beautiful thing called planet Earth. Specifically at the college, we have a center named the Center for Sustainable Futures. I invite everybody to write down tc.edu/sustainability and to check it out. On the website, we are featuring what we do, and I'm going to give you a quick overview just to inspire you to think about how we can partner after this meeting. Okay, next slide, please. So basically, like many research or units, academic units in universities, we are doing three things. We do research, we do teaching and training, and we do a lot of public engagement like this activity today. In terms of research, we do a lot of basic research, working with different entities like the City of New York, like the OECD. I'll give you some more details in a minute, to really try to improve their research capacity on issues like education for sustainability and climate change education. I'll give you a couple of examples in a minute. In terms of teaching and training, I'm very happy to say that we have more than 10 classes at this college only on sustainability, from the link between health and nutrition and sustainability and ecology, to education for sustainable development, to another class that we are offering this semester named Climate Change, Society, and Education. A class where we are teaching the students at this college, first of all, a little bit about the international architecture that we are all part of. What is the UNFCCC? What is the ACE? What are the competing frameworks, etc. And we also help them to see the role of education in fighting or mitigating climate change, not through teaching in the science class, but also about how the school behave. What's the role of school as an organization to reduce their impact on the climate? And third, we're doing public engagement. I'm more than happy to see you joining us to one of our international workshops that happen every month on a Wednesday. We meet for 90 minutes with a speaker from one of the countries that participate. They talk for 20 minutes, and then we have small group activities around it. If you want to learn more, you can find recording from past events on YouTube and on our website. Specifically, if we can move on to the next slide, I would like to talk about how we advance the ACE frameworks through our partnerships. And I want to talk about the following partners. So first of all, next slide, please. We'll focus on the Office of Sustainability in New York City. I'm fascinated by how many cities around the globe are taking climate and sustainability more serious than the nation state. So the organization you mentioned earlier about subnational actors, it's a fascinating phenomenon. How subnational and cities are taking this on. New York is one of them. I'm happy to say that we are partnering with them for 6 years, trying to help them conduct research about what schools are doing on sustainability and how to improve it. And we do research and we immediately translate it into workshops and training for their teachers. If you want to read more about that, we have a couple of papers I'm more than happy to share. Next slide, please. Youth at the Center is an exciting project where we meet with youth activists at the city. We discovered in the early stages of the pandemic that climate activists have no space to meet and to work together and to learn from each other. We are facilitating this space, and what we do is we convene them and we bring experts from Colombia or other contacts that we have from the environmental NGOs or other sectors to come and meet these kids and help them to promote their activism. So Youth at the Center is entering its third year, and I'm really, really excited to see what we are doing. Next one is LEAP, learning the earth, something with physical science. Basically, the idea here is to harness all the data that we have about climate to really revolutionize the way we do climate projection. So it's a NSF grant, the National Science Foundation grant, gigantic one, and they allocated a lot of money for education purposes. So we take the science that Columbia scholars are doing and translating it into Summer Institute for teachers or other learning opportunities for teachers. We're trying to connect or to bridge the science, the lab, to the school, and this is an exciting project that we are starting this year. Next one is TALIS. I'm very happy to say that we are partnering with the OECD, the organization that its headquarters is in Paris, as you know. The OECD is doing a lot of activities to improve education. One of them is known as PISA. How many of you heard about PISA? Great. PISA is an international ranking of countries. That's not the most exciting thing that the OECD is doing. I believe TALIS is really exciting, a survey of teachers on how teachers learn and improve their practice. And I'm very happy to say that in TALIS 2024, we're going to have a full module on climate change education. We took research that we did in New York and research that was happening in other places, and we are going to have 54 countries collecting indicators on what teachers say, what teachers think about climate, what teachers do about climate, and the different ways they engage students beyond the classroom. Okay, we are the leading agency on that effort. The last one is the MIS. If we can move to the last slide. MIS Monitoring and Evaluation of Climate Change Education, a project led by Dr. Marcia McKinsey in Canada and Australia. And basically this project is trying to harness, again, all the data sources that are available on the ACE framework, okay, the 6 different elements, and try to put it into one project. So if you want to find case study about different countries, what they do around the ACE, or if you want to read some more quantitative indicators, go to the MIS website and you'll find more and more information as the project's going on. We are partnering with them on different capacity. One of them is we're doing a mapping of all organizations worldwide that are doing climate change, communication, and education. So I was happy to meet Michael in the room earlier that is doing this kind of work. And we are now finishing the first phase, documenting or mapping this group in the US. You won't believe, but the US has more than 1,000 organizations that are doing this kind of activities. The idea is to move on to the international domain and then to look at the networks, who is working with whom and where do we have gaps. The idea is that in the coming 2 years, we're going to have a lot of new data for the ACE leadership, for UNFCCC, to really promote this work in different places. So I'm happy to host you. I'll stop here and we'll move on. Okay? Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much for both of you sharing why you're here and why we're here. And I think I'm going to come back to some of the things that have come up in both of those. We thought that we would, and if we can, do the first Menti question. It was really because this was you in the room, but there's also others outside who are engaging with this event as well. So we thought we would take the opportunity to use some technology. And if you are in the room, would also invite you to go to menti.com and use that code 44585340. and just answering a couple of questions to get us started. And the first question is, which country do you come from or represent? Okay. We're not unsurprising that the United States is featuring here, but it's also interesting to see vast country, India, Japan, South Korea, Zambia, Brazil, Bahrain. And one of the things that we've heard already is that the international nature of engagement, not only in the university, but through peer-to-peer learning, also of subnational governments. So I'm going to, so the next Menti question is about sectors, and here it could be, it may be where you're working, it could be that you're a student, it could be that you're working in energy. So if we can. So what we have here is a selection of areas where you might be engaged. And again, we see some variety here of a mix of education and government and NGOs and other. And again, this comes back to something we will speak about a little bit more throughout this, about the multi-stakeholder engagement and the need for a connection across different areas of our society. I'm going to now give us a little bit of a background on what Action for Climate Empowerment is, or ACE is, so that we all on the same. We all have a similar understanding of what we're about to talk about. And as I mentioned, there are a lot of acronyms, and one of the reasons why it's called Action for Climate Empowerment, because otherwise it would be called Article 6 of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and Article 12 of the Paris Agreement, which has even less meaning than Action for Climate Empowerment. But so it is the toolbox within both treaties for changing the systems, attitudes and behaviours that are needed to foster sustainable development and manage the drivers and impacts of climate change. It has these 6 elements of climate education and public awareness, training, public participation, public access to information and international cooperation on all of those things. And then as a cross-cutting pillar is youth. And when we're talking, it was Article 6 of the Convention, and why that can be relevant is that it's very high up in the articles in a treaty, is things that were really critical to the objective of the Convention, which was to avoid dangerous anthropogenic climate change. And so those who created the Convention, those countries and those negotiators understood the critical role that all of these pieces would play in ensuring that it wasn't only governments who were thinking about and dealing with this, it was everyone, because in this context, climate change affects everyone and requires everyone to be engaged. And the way in which you go about doing that is through these 6 elements. Next slide, please. Yeah, and there's youth. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but the way in which the convention and the Paris Agreement work is that we have these articles, and then there's discussion about how to actually, that's the what, this is what we want to achieve. And then the how comes through further negotiations, and in this case it's around work programs on, at the time, Article 6, and then subsequently after the Paris Agreement was agreed in 2015, it became Action for Climate Empowerment, and it covers both of those. And why that matters is because the countries to the convention are not all countries to the convention are countries that have ratified the Paris Agreement, almost, but not all. But those elements are reflected in both treaties. Next slide, please. We now have, as a result of the COP26, so the climate conference, which is held annually, except when there's a pandemic. So COP26, one of the outcomes under an agenda item on Action for Climate Empowerment, so this is where negotiators are talking about how implementation of those elements have happened and where the gaps and the challenges might be, and then decide that how they're going to then accelerate implementation. And one of the things that they decided was that we really needed to focus on some priority areas, because as much as this is critical, what we're seeing is that it's not being implemented sufficiently and not as fast as it should be, and not as consistently as it should be. So some of these priority areas were identified as where if you get policy coherence right, if you look at if nations look at what they're doing on climate education, for example, or what they're doing on education in the context of sustainable development, that can then, you can leverage that and build on that for the purpose of climate education. And so this idea that we're not trying to reinvent anything, we're trying to build on what's happening, and we're not trying to burden countries with additional action. It's about looking at what you're already doing and making sure that it's comprehensive enough. And so that's the piece on policy coherence. So these priority areas were new to the work program on ACE. And this is a 10-year work program. This is the first year of the work program. And this event is one way in which we're engaging with implementation. Next slide, please. So this event is happening as a part of the Action for Climate Empowerment Hub, which is a virtual hub, but is centred around where the UNFCCC has its base, which is in Bonn, in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia. And so the partnership is about working together to support the implementation of some of these key areas. And one of this is around multi-stakeholder collaboration, this idea that the urgency that we have no more time, and we don't get to where we need to get to without some radical collaboration, and that multi-stakeholder collaboration is key. Focal points, this is a way of being able to engage on these topics that are happening at an international level, at a national level. So countries appoint focal points for ACE, and that's a way for the Secretariat to engage with people within countries, but it's also a way that the information is public. So it's also a way for others to engage with countries on this topic. And so ACE focal points are a very important component of implementation. And then the third pillar being around youth. And it's probably obvious, but we also can't get to where we need to get to unless we are engaging in a meaningful way with children and youth on this topic, not least because they are rights holders, but also because there's a lot of innovation, we need everybody to be as empowered as possible because we need everyone engaged to address the issue, which is at crisis point, and we have a very short amount of time in which to deal with it. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about, because we're running a little bit behind, but one of the things that we have done this year this is the first year of the ACE Hub, so as it happened, it coincided with the adoption of the Glasgow Work Programme on Action for Climate Empowerment. And so this first year we're doing activities in relation to each of those pillars. So on multi-stakeholder collaboration this year, we have had a number of networking. We will have a number of networking events, one of which happened during the mid-year conference. We're doing an event here in Climate Week New York, and there'll also be a way to connect people through a networking reception also at COP27. And that's the first year. We'll see what multi-stakeholder collaboration looks like in future years of the project. For focal points, we have piloted this year working with regional events, because in the same way that sub-regional governments is a way for us to engage more closely with what's happening on the ground, working also with regions. In this case, we're talking the Latin American Climate Week, the African Climate Week, and the MENA Climate Week this year. It provides a different way of engaging, and it's also a way in which you ensure peer engagement is relevant. So it doesn't always work so well at the international level when there's really big differences between the way in which countries work on things. So regionally is an important element. We've also we partner with UNESCO to run a webinar series, because this year is also the year of Transforming Education Summit of the SG, and we've worked with them to create a series that has a focus around climate. And then a Focal Point Academy, which will be happening virtually this year and will happen in October. And here it's an opportunity to provide some skills building around skills that are relevant for all focal points. So things around systems thinking, or things around particular issues around the national strategies that they need to do. And then on youth, we've had regional events, also youth exchange, and we're going to hear a little bit more about that and the experiences of the youth exchange. And then in a couple of weeks, we will have a hackathon, which is going to have a focus on a topic that's relevant in the context of what's happening in North Rhine-Westphalia. And we'll look to build on that and see where we can, on the outputs of that, to see how we can turn that into action. So I'm going to ask Tina to come up and we're just going to have a conversation about why it has been so important for us to have this partnership.
Yeah, maybe I just start and let you know why we as a subnational state are, of course, very happy about being involved in ACE Hub. So first of all, UNFCCC has its headquarters in North Rhine-Westphalia, and we've always been thinking, what are they doing? How can we collaborate? And wouldn't that be nice, really, that the climate department of the state can go closer and can work together with the UN on issues that we didn't define beforehand, but then we had some personal connection and really trying to discuss what could we do, what would be beneficial for both of us. So then the issue of ACE Hub education and training came up. And for us, that is really a very important issue, because we do a lot of things on the ground as well in our region, working with kindergartens, working with schools, but also having consultation programs for for municipalities, for enterprises, for citizens. So really a very broad campaigning also on climate. So that was really a good opportunity for us to take this also on an international level and spend some money as a state with very high pollution rate, a very high CO2 emission rate on an international level, and sort of try to foster this process there as well. And then for us, it's also interesting, of course, to bring in our expertise to the project, and also bring the international more to North Westphalia with field trips, but also with bringing in people, experts from our region, who can give speeches at seminars and things. So that was really interesting. And also we have the opportunity to bring students and youth really into the process, and giving them access to international exchange, and also getting to know more about what UN is doing. And I think that is really beneficial, because we need all hands on deck, and we need, of course, also the people who after us keep working on these issues. So yeah, that was the reasons for us to engage with you. And what are the reasons for you to engage with us?
Well, very similar. I mean, I think one of the things that if you take no other message away from this, is that there is a need for us to engage in different ways. And it's very important for the international process to also be able to bring local experience into the international, and bring the international to the local experience. And so having a partner who also has that direct engagement, not only with civil society and citizens, but also with industry, it also gives us a connection that we don't otherwise have. And because we're not an implementing entity, the Secretariat supports the intergovernmental process. And so this has been a way also for us as an international organisation. We want to give back to the community in which we live and work. So it's been a very important exercise in actually putting into practice some of the multi-stakeholder collaboration that we talk about. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And now we move on to hear the experiences of a couple of people who have participated in the activities this year that the ACE Hub has put on, and to hear from them also what this has meant to engage with this topic and with the ACE Hub itself. So I'm going to invite Hayley and Joseph to come up, and then I think we're going to do the talking, and then yeah, good. So Hayley Campbell is a climate activist, born to former climate deniers, who holds a Master's of Sustainability Solutions from Arizona State University. She has 5+ years of experience organising and volunteering for climate justice initiatives, including serving as the co-executive director of Care About Climate, crafting climate adaptation games for community empowerment with Honolulu's Municipal Climate Change Office, and leading the push for youth inclusion in climate policy making as contact point for the UNFCCC's official Children and Youth Constituency Youngo's Action for Climate Empowerment team. We also have Joseph, and Joseph, I'm going to have to ask you to introduce yourself because I don't have your bio. So if you would just mind introduce yourself too, please.
It's all right. Hi, everyone. So basically, my name is Joseph Pupe. I am from Zambia. I am a youth leader and passionate, just like all of us here, about the state of our planet and how our dreams might not come to reality because we might not have a planet to live in, or the earth we call home. So I am an ACE delegate for the 2022 cohort, which was held in Bonn, Germany, past July, and my work is around culture and community engagement. So basically, I use cultural and creativity, such as music, to create awareness, educate, and just engage the public, most especially those who feel they are being left behind or their voices are not being heard. So I use culture music to amplify their voices and bring them to the conversation table, and also just to bring the scientific message, optimizing the climate science message to the non-academic communities and societies. So that's my simple bio or the work I do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask you both the same question, but it's basically if you could share your experience and your key takeaways from the ACE Youth Exchange that was held in Bonn this year. So Hayley, if you would go first.
I don't know what's happening. Hello? Oh, okay. There we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Hayley. Thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your Tuesday to come join us and learn about ACE and the Youth Hub and Exchange. And for a little bit more background, there were 20 people from different countries that were invited and 20 local young people that were a part of this conversation, for a total of 40-ish people that were able to come together for this event. And a little bit more insight is it focused in part one on skills building and capacity building for our own skills about what we can do to be able to better learn and share our own climate stories, which is really, really important for finding your own voice and space in this climate justice movement that we're all a part of. And then we also got to workshop some of our own ideas with our fellow community members to learn from their stories around the world and see how maybe what one person is doing, you can reflect back into your own community and collaborate. So a little bit of an overview just about what we did in short, a very short overview of 3 days. But for me, I think I have 3 kind of main takeaways. The first was just the opportunity to collaborate and learn from other people who I would never have met in person and possibly ever on Zoom even in my entire life, who are making amazing strides for climate justice in their communities. And this includes young Indigenous leaders, it includes people from the global North and people from the global South, and people who are doing school, who haven't done school. It's pretty much people, young people from all different walks of life. And so it was amazing to be able to learn and exchange ideas about the stuff that we are doing. And what kind of Joseph was saying earlier, and something I heard at a session earlier today, is we're talking about behavior change, which is something essential for creating this future that we all want to live in. We have to talk about culture, and we have to talk about our own stories, and we have to talk about how those connect and how we can collaborate and share our ideas to make this future world we're all designing together better. So that's one thing. A second thing that I thought was really amazing was that it did teach a lot of young people about the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. Again, a lot of acronyms. And something that I am a part of that Fleur mentioned is YOUNGO, the youth constituency of the UNFCCC. And we have our own ACE working group within that, so we're able to go and try to influence outcomes at the international level. And so not a lot of people know about YOUNGO or about an opportunity that exists to have your voice heard on the international stage, and sometimes get your demands and priorities included in some of these decisions, such as the new Glasgow work program on ACE. We were able to have, with support of the UNFCCC, guiding us, and along the way too, is get some of our ideas included in this new framework, and also hopefully included in this upcoming action plan. So it's a really great opportunity to provide a space to bring voices that are often unheard into the international space, which tends to kind of set the stage for what governments do at the national level. Sometimes here in the US, there's a lot of local subnational drive that I think is really, really essential, and being able to connect that and understand how that might play into the international level and use that to your advantage when you're trying to push for different policies locally, I think is really important, which leads me to my last takeaway, which is really just connecting and workshopping ideas of things that you're doing. For me, I also, as mentioned, lead a nonprofit called Care About Climate, and we really tried to increase community, young people, specifically education and training and capacity building on what is the UNFCCC, but also how do you become your own best advocate? Because, as a young person, you often have to be the one advocating for yourself, but also because you know what you want and what you prioritize and what you want to be educated on. So we want to create that space for young people to say, here's what I want to learn, or here's what I want to do, and here's how we can be our own best advocates. So we're able to do a lot of training in that regard. And excitingly, we were able to build a lot of partnerships now with a bunch of other young people doing, similar things or different things, and being able to insert our projects into each other's work to really better spread the word and uplift each other. And that's something I think is really strong with the youth movement, is we're all really about supporting each other, and none of us really get funding for anything, and so it's amazing that in this space we're all willing to be volunteers for our planet and our future together, not just because we care and our lives depend on it, but because it's something that really does allow us to create this community around building our future together. And now I have a bunch of friends around the world, including Joseph here, that we can continue to connect with, and I hope that this transforms into some type of alumni situation where we can continue to build upon our networks and our stories and our projects as they develop, where we get new jobs and want to learn from somebody else too. So I think there's a lot more I could say, but I'll pass it over to you.
I think this one works. Well, it worked. You did it. So basically, I would echo the same words that Haley said, especially on the first takeaway, where we created long-lasting friendships and connections, and with like-minded people who were our peers and also experts. This was something that, like Haley said, priceless. You couldn't have had that privilege or opportunity with any other means than just to have been selected to be a part of that group that was there. And secondly, and most importantly, one of my takeaways was it gave me the platform to be a part of this growing youth-led movement that's really stepping up to and rising to the occasion to want to do something meaningful for the future, and not only because it's our future, but because we care about it. And I always share that 5-10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, young people would not be seated in these spaces. Young people would be minding their own businesses, doing things for young people. But because of this growing crisis that's we are continuing to see, we see that young people are getting more concerned about the issues that are relevant to them. And because they're seeing slow action, slow progress, and nothing being done by those we appointed or elected to be our leaders, young people are now taking it upon themselves or stepping up to help, to say how best can we be innovative and creative. And this is me here and Haley, and of course others around the world, and you guys who are doing the same work. This is something that not only is beneficial to the UNFCCC or Yango, but this is a manifestation or maybe a commitment that has been demonstrated from all corners of the world. I mean, both people who are in this space and those people who were in the spaces in Bonn. We continue to see that even when the circumstances are extreme, we're still dedicated to volunteer, use our last cent or penny that we have to maybe subscribe to the internet, subscribe to some lessons that we can learn on, and improve our knowledge on what is it that we can do. And the ACE program actually is one of the best initiatives that is there to educate, to train, and also to include the voices, the people that in underserved communities and that feel are being left behind on these key issues that we are spearheading, and which is very also essential with financing and international corporations. Some of the things that are being overlooked is we see young people just as seat fillers instead of key stakeholders. And as through the Article 6 and the Article 12 really puts greater importance to that, to ensure that not only young people are engaged, but are engaged meaningfully and are provided with all the necessary and relevant tools and resources that are needed to take part into the climate agenda.
Thank you both. And I think this point about a meaningful engagement, and I think this is one of the things that is often we talk about what meaningful engagement, but it's important that young people actually get to say what meaningful engagement actually is. And I think one of the things that we try to do with the work that we do with youth engagement as a secretariat is to make sure that it is youth-led, that these are young people who are key stakeholders and are partners in creating the space. So I'm going to move on to our third delegate, who is not able to be here in person, but he recorded kindly recorded a video for us. And we'll just play that. So thank you to Simon, and we have the Menti there. So having heard a little bit about what ACE is and how it was, how it had helped all the different connections that were made, the capacity building, and this, we'll do this quickly. The quick question on, having heard these different experiences, are there things that you've thought about how those elements could be used to help empower young people to engage more in the climate policy and action space? And you can use the same code, which was 44585340.
I think I'm going to be helping out here a little with the Menti stuff, but thanks for welcoming me back then. Yeah, we have, gosh, I think I can read it better. Actually, I have okay enough vision. All right, so we have a platform for action. We have conduct more events in educational institutions where you find more youth. That's also, those are both really great ones. I think, schools, universities are some of the closest people to young people, other than, I guess, our own parents, which says a lot also about how we can educate people beyond school too, to continue to learn more and care about the climate. Also, we have welcome minorities and promote a network to them, help educational resources, conduct bilateral meetings. Nice. Yeah, I definitely think that there's a lot missing sometimes between our schools and our outside communities that we're living in. Sometimes there's a gap where people might not know of a speaker series or not be invited because they're not in a university newsletter or system, and they moved there and don't know anything about it. So I think that's a really great point, is how can we connect to people that might not realize they're doing education and training and other ACE activities, but they are with people who are obviously doing them, like a university or school. Organize access to climate education finance. Yeah, critically underfunded. Not necessarily maybe universities, although I'm sure that there's gaps there. But other groups that are also trying to lead education that might be from lived experiences too, because that's also a type of education, right? We have elevate and financially support local and subnational youth-led organizations / initiatives. Yes, I'm loving the finance ones. As kind of a nod to the upcoming ACE action plan that's being discussed right now, there is a point on finance we're hoping to see kind of get through the barriers this year to have more funding for ACE-related activities. So as a Youngo plug and priority for anyone that might be listening, ACE Finance. We have connect youth to industry and government figures and put them in a position to affect change something. I can't make out. If we could scroll down a little. We have build communication and leadership skills. Definitely the ACE Youth Exchange was really big on communication and leadership skills. So I'd love to see other states and communities taking on that model as well. The last part of that red box in the middle was affect change from their organizations within. And this other one that popped up, direct young people to capacity building programs. Yeah, I think that's a really great one. In these programs, university is one path, but there might be other pathways for people to engage. And I know that's something I'm trying to do with my nonprofit, is how can we create other pathways for people to learn that aren't within the school system. And see young people as valued voices and talent and pay them accordingly. Yes, snaps for paying young people. I think that we get it. Everyone in Youngo, for instance, we all volunteer in Youngo to help create these changes we want to see. And we don't necessarily want to be paid as a Youngo person, but in general, organizations that we lead or groups that we're a part of, or, you can't really get paid to be an activist necessarily, but being an activist and advocating and spending your time going to events and trying to highlight things that are important to you, as well as creating those resources and tools, are things that you can be funded for. So I think those are really, really awesome. Is there anyone else still typing before we wrap it up? All right, did I not get someone's? Is that everyone's? Did I skip any? Okay. Lovely. Yeah, again, I think we might be wrapping up here, but just wanted to say thank you all for coming, and especially to Flora, and I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name in the beginning. Tina, for facilitating the ACE Youth Exchange and for also inviting us to be in this space and helping to create these networks. If anyone wants to learn more about some cool opportunities with Youngo or other organizations that we are able to kind of connect and bring into this space, again, our role when we get invited here is to kind of bring in those unheard voices that don't always get to come here. So we're very knowledgeable about different groups and different countries, et cetera. So definitely please come connect with us because we'd love to help facilitate more. And Joseph's asked for 20 seconds, so we're going to give him
20
space.
seconds. 20 seconds. It's just a demonstration of, oh, thank you so much. You're so sweet. A demonstration of what could be what a great collaboration, what it is to amplify young people's voices. So this is a simple thing. You just respond to what I sing, right? So when I sing, we have the power to change our path.
To change our path.
We are the champions.
We are the champions.
We have the power.
We have the power. Y'all can be louder than that. Come on.
We have the power.
We have the power
To change our path.
to change our path.
We are the champions.
We are the champions.
We have the power.
We have the power.
I have the power
I have the power
to change my path.
to change my path.
I am the champion.
I am the champion.
I have the power.
I have the power.
You have the power
You have the power
to change your path.
to change your path.
You are the champion.
You are the champion.
You have the power.
You have the power.
Yeah, this is what. It sounds like we are running late with reaching to 2030 in terms of progress being made, but we have to believe. We have to know that as a collective, as a team, there's nothing that we can fail to achieve. We just need to collaborate, put our voices together, and climate action now.
Thanks,
Thank
y'all.
you. I was going to open for Q&A, but I think we might just move on. And we have we have a panel now, and Tina is going to take over from me in moderating. So if Jemima and Frank can come up to the panel here, and I'll hand over to you.
Okay, great. Not really sure how we can continue after this panel before, maybe dance or something. So thank you very much again for that beautiful song. We would like to have a look at ACE now from a different angle. So we had people who are really in the program, have participated in the program, and we would like to allude to the issue from a subnational government and also from more academic point of view, national point of view.
Subnational.
Yeah, so I'm very happy to introduce my two panelists today. So that next to me is Jemima Gordon-Duff from Scottish Government. She is deputy. You two have really long names and institutions, so I'm not the only one. She is Deputy Director for International Climate Change within the Directorate of Net Zero at the Government of Scotland. And she has extensive international experience working on policies and programs, including climate change. And before she became this Deputy Director, she was actually working for Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office from the UK, and has been working in Ghana and Liberia on COVID-19 response and also on climate resilience issues. And before that, she has been working on international issues in Mozambique, Pakistan, Ecuador, and Nepal for the same entity. And Frank? So where is that? Because I don't know it from heart. Sorry about that. No, where is my card on Frank?
I've disappeared.
Yeah, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. I work at the U.S. federal government in one of the federal agencies, NOAA, but I also represent about 18 agencies and departments across the U.S. federal government, national, subnational activities, networks, institutions, partners, both international and then subnational. So, I mean, that's the shortest way I could say it. I mean, I've been doing this for 17 years at the federal level. So, many initiatives, many partnerships, networks. So let's keep it short.
Thank you very much. So let's get started with you, Jemima. So from the Scottish point of view, from a subnational government in Europe, why is this ACE issue important, and what role can subnationals actually play in that whole area? And do you have any good examples from your work at home on the ACE topic?
Thank you, and thanks very much for having me. It is great to be in New York, and we actually have a minister here, and just as a kind of inspiring thought, she is 28 and she is our Minister for Environment, which always makes me wonder what I was doing with my life. There we go. So just a quick bit of background on Scotland. So we have a goal to be net zero by 2045, so slightly ahead of the UK's goal. So there's a pointer on what subnationals can do. We can do a bit of the provoking for the state governments to try and catch us up, is the plan. We have the world's largest floating wind farm, which is a new one on me, but that's, so that's actually not far from where I live in northern Scotland. Our renewables are almost 100% of our gross electrical consumption, which accounts for a third of our energy demand. So we are making progress. We certainly used to be reliant on coal, but are no longer. And we have annual targets on emissions, which lockdowns meant we met for 2020, but I think we'll see them getting increasingly difficult to meet as we go on. And so on that theme of increasingly challenging times, trying to meet these targets we've all set ourselves, is the idea of collective action. So we've heard quite a lot about that in Climate Week, I think. So the role of governments, the role of private sector, and the role of society. So one of our key findings we found is that 60% of the changes that we need for net zero will have to come from individual or societal change. So it's not just enough that we have technology and electric vehicles, we have to drive less and we have to use less. And that's actually quite a mind shift. It's not just about regulating and legislating and private sector doing things. We all actually have to change our behaviour. So the Scottish Government's quite focused on that, and that's where ACE comes in. We have just thinking about the ACE aims, so we have on the cooperation side, we work with other subnationals to learn lessons and hear about what they're doing, and in particular on something we've called just transition, which is moving, as we move away from fossil fuels and more to a lower carbon economy, but how we can do that in a way that's inclusive and creates meaningful jobs. I don't know if any of you know UK politics and history, but the 70s and 80s were a very difficult time in the UK when we shut down all our coal mines, and it left a lot of poverty. So there's a big drive to learn the lessons from that, and how, if we move away from oil and gas, how do we learn those lessons and make sure that communities aren't left behind? It's something that's done for them and not to them. So that's one is on cooperation, two is on education. So I have two small boys who continually come home and tell me about the climate. So it's very much part of all the school programs. They get upset with their father's recycling practices. So I'm glad they're taking that on and not me. We do awareness raising. So we have Climate Week in Scotland coming up at the end of this month. And it's a government initiative, but the idea is that actually we just provide information and we send it out to libraries and book clubs and schools and women's groups, and they can then use it as a basis to have climate conversations. So it's meant to be something that's much more organic than a kind of government initiative, just with this idea of changing behavior in a way that everyone will have to. And then on the participation, one of ACE's aims as well, we have the climate assembly. So we had 100 people who were randomly selected. I'm not sure how that felt when it came through the letterbox to be a member of the climate assembly. And they made 81 recommendations to government about how we should be changing climate. And some of them are really interesting. We are having now sharing libraries, so people can go and borrow tools and toys and rather than buy them, and repair cafes as well. So again, that kind of changing our behavior, actually consuming less being the key drive. There's more I could talk about internationally, but I will leave it there because I know time's short. Thanks.
Great, thank you. So that was an insight from actual subnational government. And Frank, could you work like more on the superior level, but actually also with states and regions. So what is your take on ACE, and what are the good examples from your area of work?
So a couple key considerations. So, just as we're sitting in the United States, in New York City, we're a complicated country. We're a really complicated country. I've been working nationally between 27 and 17 years in this space. But the dynamism of when it comes to climate and education, climate in school, climate in university, climate in museum, climate in aquarium, climate in park, climate in, just keep going down the list of all the elements, the functions of where empowerment happens in our country is massive. Too bad Owen's not here right now, but that list of 1,000, I think is what I remember, because what we're talking about is organic. It is naturally showing up in the way schools, classrooms, museums, zoos, all over the place. And so one of the things I focus a lot of my time on is network building, organization, convening, centering, trying to lift up, elevate, I like that word, the work that is going on, because it's not about really what governments are doing and initiating. So our country doesn't work really well top down. It's not how we work. We set up our government architecture to not let that happen. And so we play a supporting role at the federal government. The leadership is really distributed. So when you have distributed leadership in work like this, you have to learn, elevate, and convene in very sensitive and important ways. Everything you said was brilliant. And this is what the promise of ACE is that as we learn from each other as we do our work, we can actually be inspired from, engage in, and take from. The climate assembly model, brilliant model. It is happening in the United States, but it's in an organic way. It's in Washington State. It's in a couple other places. So when it comes to this topic in a country like ours, California is like a country. It's more like Germany. It's so big and complicated. So the work that I do is really in that cross-boundary space. The one thing, as we're talking now, we have 3 major federal bills that just passed in the United States: the infrastructure bill, the CHIPS bill, and the IRA, which is Inflation Reduction Act bill. All of them have massive climate bills. I've already indexed all of them related to ACE. And the amount of programs and funds that are focused in this way are massive. When you couple that with the federal enterprises between energy, EPA, NASA, Science Foundation, NOAA, keep on going down the list. It's about 19 federal entities. You see tremendous capacity, hundreds of programs that are focused in this space. What we're missing is coherence. And so one of the things I'm doing is trying to figure out how to build coherence into that strategic support. But then when you look at the subnational, you have massive enterprises of climate action. But what they're missing, and we're in one of those places, is climate empowerment. Just to give you a concrete example of how this is working, what we see now in the United States is the Electrify Everything strategy has got a big choke point. It's called electricians. We don't have anywhere near enough electricians in this country to actually take the work on. So one of the things I found interesting about the what can ACE do conversation is there's a misalignment between future workforce that are driven by these climate strategies and people who have the skills to do the work. An electrician is just one of those. HVAC technician, another one. Wind technician, a third. There's a lot of them. We don't have a good handle on this, but just the electrician one's a good one to know. If anybody of you have a house or a place where you're trying to do anything electrical right now, you can't get an electrician. Think about electrifying everything. It's in those bills to put heat pumps everywhere there's natural gas heating in this country. We don't have the electricians to do that. So this is where ACE plays a critical, essential piece. But if you think about that a little bit further, that actually happens at upper elementary. I used to be a teacher, and young people think about, what do I want to do at 10, 11? So there's an alignment between what happens in our technical schools, our families, our schools, our museums, our zoos, on these challenges where we're going to need more capacity, more people signing up, preparing for the work. Because where we are right here, 60% of future electricity is going to come from offshore wind. We have 0 right now in New York, but we don't have any technical programs to actually train offshore wind technicians in New York. There's only one in the United States, and it's in Bristol, Bristol Community College in Massachusetts. So where the education system has not really lined up where these climate plans are going. And so that's a challenge that we're working on this country. It's a big task.
Yeah, thank you very much, Frank. This workforce is actually, it's a big issue in Germany as well at the moment, and we heard it yesterday as well in the Under 2 Coalition meeting from Australia too. So I think it's a really global problem, and we need to solve that really quick. So Fleur, you also joined the panel, and I would like to ask you, how would you see the future collaboration possibilities of UNFCCC and subnationals and other non-party stakeholders?
Thank you. And listening to all of these things here, that the whole, we've heard about peer learning, and I think this is one of the ways in which, because we've also just heard that the largest offshore wind farm is in Scotland. So that there is this opportunity for peer learning, which is potentially the only way in which we are able to rapidly scale up the learning that's needed for the just transition. And I think we've sort of focused a little bit here on the electrification and on behavior change, but this behavior change is also linked to an understanding of what's driving climate change. So the part of this is also connecting, and I think this is where subnational, where you're closer to society, and there's more agility in being able to respond to things that are happening, and I think that this connection, we know that this is what's needed. We know that there's a level of collaboration that isn't natural for the systems that we have at the moment. Our government systems are not naturally collaborative, but there is a need for what's happening at a societal level to be informing what's happening at a national level, because what's happening at a national level informs what's happening at an international level. And so that flow of information, that flow of learning and it's not one way. It's got to be two-way. And I think this is where part of what we do as a secretariat is also to create opportunities for the sharing of experience in a way that those who wouldn't otherwise be connected get connected. So whether it's here, whether it's in different spaces, to allow the stories that are happening in Africa are also informing what's happening elsewhere, because or what's happening in Europe is informing what's happening in Asia and the Pacific. It's not going to be exactly the same, but there are going to be elements that are relevant. Why something is working is as important as what's happened. So I think there's lots of opportunities for collaboration in different spaces, and the ACE Hub is one example of that, and we see an opportunity for increasing the peer exchange through that one vehicle. But there are lots of other ways in which we can do that, and we look forward to exploring that as we go.
Thank you very much. Jemima, you told me that you are actually not really cooperating with the UNFCCC, but feeding into the UNFCCC process. So could you just let us know what that is?
Yes. So, well, we hosted COP, obviously, last year in Glasgow. So that was the biggest event Scotland's ever had. So we're all glad that's over, much as it was really excellent and really enjoyable. Yeah. So we're part of the UK delegation. So that's always an interesting dynamic, especially when you're the part of the UK that wants to go a bit further and a bit faster. But we were part of that, so we're slightly stymied or constrained, might be the word. We do support youth negotiators to attend COP, and women as well from the global south. So I think that's a kind of important contribution we can make to make sure their voices are heard. And then we work quite closely with the high-level champions. So there's specific bodies within the UN that are to kind of work closely with non-state actors. So yeah, we work with them in particular, and they work with private sector, subnationals, and civil society. So those would be the ways.
Thank you. That's really interesting. Frank, what do the US states and regions do in direction of UNFCCC processes?
I think it was back at COP21 when the subnational, so I was part of the US delegation on the Paris Agreement up in Le Bourget outside of the Paris, but the subnationals were meeting down at the City Hall. And so businesses, governors, mayors were all down at the City Hall. And that was intriguing to me because my brother-in-law was part of that. He was down at City Hall. I was outside at the national level. And what was intriguing was we were meeting separately, and yet we're working on the same goal, just at a different scale. And I think one of the things that this conversation here about ACE is the scale at which this work is really done deeply is kind of down at this scale where we are sitting right now, across countries, because there's a relationship between nations and international here, but that deep, heavy work is actually best done at a community scale, a county scale, a city scale, maybe a small state scale. California is not a state, it's a country. Just call it a state. It's so complicated. I was just there last week. So, but I think the power and dynamism and the relationships, the longer I do this, the relationships. So the week before that, I was in Pittsburgh. They all know each other. The head of sustainability, the head of education, the heads of these NGOs, the head of this, they all know each other, because that's how you can work. When you're working at levels like a federal, national level in a country like the United States, it's really hard to do work. You're too far away from it. And so what the promise of ACE at the subnational level is that you're able to actually put all the pieces together in a way that can have systemic change, in a way that you just can't operate at a big, complicated country. So for the way we work in this country is by its very nature subnational. What we haven't really done, and so the promise of the ACE Hub is how do we do subnational across not just the United States, but across the world, because the subnational learnings of Africa and Asia and other places are valuable for us, and we have things to contribute to. So that's really what I think that the special aspect of what the ACE Hub is exploring is incredibly smart and transformational. And so also the funders who made this possible are to be thanked.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that the last thing that you mentioned, that really this is what we're doing in this Under 2 coalition, really connecting the dots between states and regions of the world and really fostering that peer learning on really different aspects of the transformation. So I think I'm wrapping up this panel discussion and lead over again to Fleur, but thank you very much. I think everyone in its own his or her own place is working on these issues, trying to spread the word, be loud on climate, and really try to get everyone involved. And with a special focus, of course, also on the next generation, so that this work is being carried on. Thank you so much, and I hand over back to Fleur.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that experience, because I think we're trying in all of this to try and make real what is otherwise potentially a sort of conceptual thing. But I want to just honor the people who are in the room and give you an opportunity, if you have any questions at this point, to ask them, either of this panel or of our youth delegates who spoke earlier. If there's any questions at all, please ask them now.
I think I have a question about access to opportunities. The youth program at the ACE, it is an incredible opportunity to young people, but my personal feelings that not everybody has this information to participate on the program. So regarding this, what are you thinking about ways to include more people from different part of the world and increase the diversity?
So one of the reasons why we engage with Youngo as the children and youth constituency to the UNFCCC is because of its expanse. So I will let you speak to that, but it's very important to the Secretariat and to the process that it is as representative as possible, and but as a Secretariat, one of the challenges we have, a constraint we have, is that we can't deal with everybody. So one of the important partnerships we have is with Youngo, who then have a democratic process for how young people who are members of Youngo then are able to engage. But I'll let Hayley answer that a little more.
Yeah, just quickly, I think that's a really good point, because a lot of people, even in my own nonprofit of young people, do not know about Youngo, or maybe they're not involved in it, right? But I think in a partnership between the UNFCCC and the subnational government, that the easiest way, as Fleur is mentioning, is to kind of help get young people from other countries is through an existing partnership, right? And for Youngo, I think there's like, gosh, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. 10,000 young people, please correcting me. I don't even know. There's so many thousands of young people in there. And anybody can join. That's the beauty of it. And there's a bunch of capacity building and our own training that we do to ensure that we can invite young people to these spaces. And when they are invited, they know what's going on and how to get involved. And there's, anyone can apply to any opportunity. They have a selection process. And I would say that out of the 20 young people, I think, that were selected from around the world, it was quite an international group. Every region was definitely represented, and it was really amazing to be a part. And of course, not everyone can be there. It was only 40 people, but I think that's also the power of having these conversations and workshops and spreading awareness this way too. But if you're interested in joining Youngo, definitely come find me. I have the links.
Thank you very much. My name is Pume. I'm from South Africa. My question is, I appreciate the presentations that have been made, very useful. I've been working for government, but I've just left government now just to work at more at grassroots level. So we're part of the Under 2 coalition where I come from, but now I'm just working with youth and so on. I just want to know about the exchange programs that we have spoken about in terms of how exactly it works. And do pardon me if you've already explained this one. What is the actual linkage between the work of ACE and the UNFCCC itself? Perhaps in a more direct way. Thank you.
So the secretariat is the secretariat to the treaties, so to the convention and the Paris Agreement. And Action for Climate Empowerment is the name given to two of the articles under an article under Article 6 under the convention and Article 12 under the Paris Agreement. And the articles to the treaties are for implementation by parties, by countries. But then the decisions that come to support the implementation of those articles include action for the Secretariat, but also invitations to many other stakeholders to engage in implementation, because there's a recognition that although it's only countries who can agree to things in a treaty, the implementation of that has to be done across society. And so the Secretariat's role is defined in some ways by the work programs that are agreed by countries. And one of those things is to support various aspects. So one of the things that we're tasked with doing is facilitating support to national ACE focal points, and to promote and facilitate action that where young people can participate and lead in climate action. So these are two areas in which the Secretariat has a specific role to play. And one of the things about the ACE Hub has been that this partnership allows us to do that in a very direct way. So through the youth exchange and the hackathon that will happen, and then through an ACE Focal Point Academy that we are organising in virtually for October. So the connection to the Secretariat is that we have a role in facilitating the implementation. Countries have a role have a very big role in implementation, but the Secretariat is there also to facilitate that engagement.
Hi, my name is Sol Moran Sol Rosa, and I've been following ACE and Youngo for a while. Been at a few COPs, and I guess my question is, with the energy that's put in both with Youngo and UNFCCC and all the work for years that's taken to get to this point with ACE, being that the UN is an independent body, but I'm feeling almost like a space that's created for negotiations internationally. How optimistic are you that the efforts that are put into ACE, et cetera, will actually make a change, make impact, be implemented, be incorporated, and actually really put into action in a realistic amount of time? Thank you.
So I was an ACE focal point, and one of the things I determined was the up-out strategy was too complicated. And so I grounded my work deeply in the subnational across. And my across is limited up to the edge of the country. The reason why is because what we're kind of like what you said is that we're finding that the activities of ACE are actually crucial. They're essential. You can't achieve these goals without it. But the scale you implement that has to be closer to the ground of where people live and work. And so, that's our strategic move. And I think that what we're seeing is where it's done at that scale, county and city and sometimes states, usually small states, you're beginning to see very high impact value. But you have to look carefully to see where it is. If you look nationally, you miss it. It's actually at the deep subnational across is where the impact is actually happening. That's the transformation scale. So that's opens up the door for how do we learn from each other. That's really the extra value that we're trying to figure out how to design right now. But I can assure you that when it's done and done well, it's incredibly important and crucial. It's just not done everywhere yet, and that's an opportunity.
And I would just say that one of the differences between this work program and previous work programs is what seems very technical, but it was the priority areas. And Frank's comment about coherence and why that was so important, that's one of the priority areas. And so we see that there's an opportunity with this new work program to really focus on those areas where if you get them right, you make a huge difference. So in that, I think there's an understanding that it hasn't, for various reasons, hasn't been implemented as rapidly and as consistently as it should have been. It's no less important, and I think countries have continued to say this is a really vital tool, but the way in which it gets implemented, this need for collaboration, for tools and support, for coordinated action is critical, and it is now reflected in the work program. So I think that is a change from where it has been.
I don't know if anyone has any other questions, so I can make my answers short, but I think something else unique to this, I guess 2 comments. One, unique to the new work program is it does actually call for some form of monitoring and reporting, which has not been done before. Sorry to add to your workload, Fleur, but I think that that's a really good key aspect that was missing previously. And as part of that, something we're trying to encourage in the New ACE Action Plan is, this idea of mainstreaming ACE and ensuring that when we're talking about ACE, we're not only leaving it in the bubble of, this ACE climate education, that's it. It's beyond that. It goes across into the gender discussions, into NDCs. ACE should be reflected in all of those two NDCs, nationally determined contributions / countries' commitments to the Paris Agreement, for acronym's sake. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of opportunities, and I think that things like the ACE Hub can be a model for how we can do more exchanges subnationally. And I think even having the 4 priority areas is kind of a great start for someone like me to maybe email my ACE focal point as somebody working in this space to say, hey, I know that you have to do these things because you agreed to, and here is how I think that I can help you do it. And so I encourage everyone to definitely follow along the development of this ACE action plan. Again, Youngo has our priorities. If you have an opinion on what you want to see, let me know. And we can really, make that pathway possible so that when things are monitored and reported on, hopefully you can also see your actions reflected in that too. So there's a lot of other things I can add, but definitely I think we're on an upward trajectory compared to the last 30 years of ACE efforts.
And we're at a point in time where we have no more time. So not only here, but in fact, not only for this event, but we are at that point where everything is urgent and we need to do things differently. So I want to thank our panelists again for your contributions to today, and to Haley and to Joseph and to Simon. Thank you to Tina for agreeing for us to work together to make this happen. Not an easy thing to do when we're in Bonn and the event's in New York. Thank you also to the Teachers College and to my team who have also back in Bonn, but the team here, to Irma and to Ye. Thank you very much. And to the technicians who've supported us in delivering this, thank you for being here and engaging with us. And we look forward to you engaging also with the ACE topic going forward.